What's up, Pit Crew? Welcome to the nation. I'm your host, Tim, and today I want to talk to you about battery-powered EVs. Do they spell the doom and demise of the car culture? Well, I don't really think so, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily happy about them either. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so battery-powered EVs, they're not a new concept. Believe it or not, they've actually been around since at least the 1960s. Of course, back then you were lucky to get about 20 miles per charge on them. So they have come a long way. But what exactly does it mean for the car culture? Well, I mean, obviously the roar of the V8 is going to be a relic of the past pretty soon, and you can already see that as even in full-size pickups, car manufacturers are moving more towards turbocharged V6s. So, and even those, even like with the Ford Mustang and the Chevy Camaro, even though the Camaro's on its way out, unfortunately, even they have a turbocharged 4-cylinder option now. So engines are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but more and more powerful. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. But what about EVs? So what could you possibly do to modify an EV? Well, there's a handful of things, I suppose. You could probably hack the software and maybe try to make it a little more responsive. But you look at things like ludicrous mode in a Tesla and it's like, well, that's plenty responsive, isn't it? I mean, 0 to 60 faster than most internal combustion engines. And Tesla's not the only one that can do that. So, I mean, really, we're talking electric motor swaps, perhaps, or even maybe some kind of grassroots build. Maybe you want to put a 400 or 500 horsepower electric motor in front of a transmission, and in a more traditional vehicle. And there's a few companies that actually provide those kinds of kits to turn your classic car, or even something as mundane as a Volkswagen Beetle, into an EV. So as far as performance gains though, I mean, there's really not much you can do without big money, but do you really need to anyway? They're pretty quick. So aside from that, well, I mean, we could look at suspension upgrades. We could look at cosmetics just to make your Tesla or your Rivian or whatever it is stand out more so than it already does. So I don't think that EVs are going to necessarily kill car culture. I think they're just going to take them in a different direction, and it's going to be more personalization as opposed to chasing numbers and horsepower. Unless, of course, you're a big budget spender and you can afford to swap out that electric motor. So it's going to be a bit of a shift. It's going to be a change. Personally, I'm not looking forward to them. I was born in the mid-'80s. I grew up loving cars ever since the early 90s, so I like the sound of an engine, and I don't want a fake sound piped into the cabin. This car does that, and I hate it. I cut the wire that allows that to happen. Sue me. It's just not my thing, I want to hear that real engine note when I get on the accelerator pedal. But that's just me. Maybe you've got a different take on it. Maybe you're excited about it. The performance of, say, a Tesla Plaid, it's pretty impressive. I'm not mad at their performance. I would say what probably irks me the most about EVs is their forced adoption. It's no surprise that many, many, many governments around the world are forcing the adaptation of EVs by 2035, 2050, what have you. And I get it. We got one planet. We need to take care of it. That's all good and well. I'm fine with that. But something you need to consider is an EV, to make an EV, it's actually more carbon to make one than an internal combustion vehicle. That EV does not become carbon neutral until about 100,000 miles, okay? Well, as we've established in one of my previous videos talking about changing driveline fluids out, that 100,000 miles is an auto manufacturer's expected life of the vehicle. So at 100,000 miles, they expect you to trade that car up for another one, okay? They don't expect that car to still be on the road. So from that point of view, the EVs will never actually hit carbon neutrality because you're getting rid of them. And then add on to that, that by that time, you're probably looking at changing out your battery pack. And now the whole carbon cycle starts all over again. Because what makes the majority of the carbon for producing an EV is mining the materials to make the batteries. Not to mention battery disposal itself. Now there are some companies working on that. Some companies are working on being able to rebuild and refresh those battery packs. And you know, that's a great thing. That's definitely going to help with carbon neutrality and all that. But overall, you can already see how EVs are not going to be this great world saver that people try to market them as. If anything, it could actually end up causing more problems. Now, having said that, I have heard of a company through Ian Crossland watching Timcast IRL. I've heard of a company that's actually trying to make graphene batteries by pulling carbon out of the air. How exactly that works, I don't know, but I'm really excited for that technology, because if that can hit mainstream, and if that technology can prove reliable, dependable, affordable, then that's going to be a game changer. And this whole conversation can change if that takes place. So do a little research into that. Maybe a little investing. I don't know. That's on you. That's your call. But going back onto the forced adaptation of EVs. Let's face it, the infrastructure, it's not there right now. Even if an EV production was completely carbon neutral from day one, the infrastructure is not there, and neither is the technology. Tesla has done great things here in the United States, getting chargers up, and actually in their navigation software, you put in your destination, from what I've been told, and it'll actually map your route with charging stations in mind. And it'll let you know, again, from what I've been told, I've never road tripped one, it'll let you know, hey, you're coming up on the last charging station you're going to be able to make it to, so you better pull over and charge. So there's been great gains with that. But unless I'm mistaken, they have a proprietary charger. So if you're in something else, say a new Mercedes battery electric vehicle, you're not going to be able to use a Tesla charger. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, and if I am, please put it in the comments. Let's get a conversation going. Fill in my knowledge gaps, because honestly, I'm going to drive an internal combustion engine until I cannot get gas for it anymore, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And even then, I don't know. Maybe maybe I'll get on the bicycle and lose a little weight. I'm just not a fan of EVs. And part of my reasoning for that is because they are just soulless appliances. You know, again, going back to being into cars since the early 90s, vehicles of that era, they had what we called character, which is to say they had quirks. And not every car was the same. You know, my old 93 Honda Del Sol was the only 93 Honda Del Sol with its specific character. And that's, maybe that's neither here nor there to you, but for me, I like to develop a bond with my vehicle. And that's one of the things that even this car, it is so computerized, it is so electronic, that even it doesn't really have any character. It's fun to drive because it's ridiculously fast. And I'm completely confident and comfortable driving it because I know that I've got all-wheel drive and safety overlays galore, and I know what I'm doing behind the wheel. So it's soulless. It doesn't communicate. As I said in my very first video, doing an expose on this car, there's not a lot of feedback, you know? When you're really digging into a curvy road, the car doesn't really communicate with you. It does what you tell it to do, and you really have to keep your ears open for what are my tires doing, because you're not feeling it in the pedals. You're not feeling it in the steering wheel. All you really have to go on is what you can hear, what you can see, and what you can smell. The feel of it is gone. And that's probably, I can't imagine that I'm the only one that feels this way, that feels that cars just don't communicate to their drivers, that the era of driver's car is an era gone by. And the brand new Toyota 86 BRZ Twin, I've been told, I haven't driven them, and I would love to rectify that, but I've been told that they are good driver's cars, that they are an affordable, in fact, I've seen a YouTube video with this headline, you know, showing a picture of the 86 BRZ Twin with the headline saying, affordable Porsche, you know, and okay, performance-wise, well, all right, they do great on the track. Awesome. But does that mean that they communicate with you? Well, I don't see how. They have the same electronic power steering that this car and pretty much every car has. You can't really get hydraulic power steering anymore, which safety-wise, that makes sense. Power steering fluid, highly, highly flammable. Believe it or not, it's actually more flammable than what's in your gas tank. So I totally understand why people want to get away from that. And on top of that, manufacturing one power steering, electronic power steering unit that goes into all the cars that you produce, well, that saves a whole lot of money and that keeps cars affordable. So I get that too. But why can't Porsche or Toyota or BMW or whomever, why can't they have a car class, we'll say, that truly is a driver's car, that is less safety overlays, less bells and whistles, less doodads, okay? Keep the climate control by all means, because, hey, I love me some AC in the summer. Keep the radio. That's fine. We don't have to go track focused here. But give us a car that has some feeling, you know? Give us a car that talks to us, that tells us when we're approaching our limit and when we're approaching the car's limit, you know? Give us a car that we can bond with. But, you know, I'm off on a tangent about that. Let's get back to EVs, all right? So I mentioned the infrastructure. It's just not quite there yet. It's getting close. Tesla has a good foothold on it, but the proprietary charging things, kind of like an iPhone proprietary charger versus an Android USB-C, well, we got to do something about that, because that's just not going to cut it. Everyone's going to have to be on the same page. But the technology, okay? There's been plenty of videos coming out about various EV trucks. There was a video that went viral about a Ford Lightning just killing its battery trying to tow a Model A. I'm sure we've all seen that video. There's another video of a brand new Hummer EV just brain locking in the middle of a road. And thankfully, the driver of that Hummer, he was in a turn lane, so traffic was able to get around him. A police officer arrived on scene and was able to direct traffic and keep things safe. And ultimately, that's the best outcome for a bad situation, is that nobody gets hurt. The vehicle gets, you know, off the road. But these are things that put into my mind, at least, that the technology is not there. You know, we want to talk about the range of an EV, all right? Let's say that I need to take a trip from Colorado to Kansas City, all right? Like middle of Colorado to Kansas City. Well, in a gas-powered car, that is I want to say it's like a 8 or 9 hour drive. Once you make a few stops, maybe it gets up to like 10 or 11, what have you. It's a pretty good drive either way, all right? And that's stopping like 3, maybe 4 times for fuel. Okay, so that's in a gas-powered car with 300-mile range in the fuel tank. So a comparable EV with 300-mile range per charge, you're not stopping 3 times for 10 minutes to pump gas, grab a coffee, and get back on the road. You're stopping for an hour. You know, if, you know, maybe you've got a Tesla super charging station, whatever they call it, and you're able to get back on the road in a half hour or whatever the number is these days. Again, leave it in the comments. Fill in my knowledge gaps, all right? But either way, you're taking what should be 8 to 10 hours and you're turning it into 2 days. Some people, that's fine. Getting there is half the adventure, right? But if you're doing that for, say, work purposes, that's not fine. You know, if, let's say you have to go there for some kind of training, for your boss sends you there for weeks training, and he's going to pay you for driving there because that's company policy and he has to, right? He's probably okay with paying you the 8 hours that it's going to take you to drive it in an internal combustion engine. But you have an EV. You need 2 or 3 days to do it. You think he's going to give you 2 or 3 days worth of pay to drive? I don't. Is he even going to give you 2 or 3 days off to get there? Probably not. You're probably going to have to fly. Maybe he'll pay for the ticket, but now instead of your car producing a little bit of carbon to make that drive, now you're jumping on a jet that produces a lot of carbon to make that trip, which, if it's John Kerry's personal jet, what does he care? But it's not. It's a freaking United Airlines jet. You're going through security. You're paying a high price. You're limited on what you can take. You know, if you're going to be there for a week and maybe there's a ski resort or something that you want to go to, well, you could have thrown your skis into the back of your Jeep Cherokee, but now you're flying. So that's a check bag fee. So the technology, the infrastructure, I don't think it's there yet. Government's forcing us to move on to EVs when it's not ready. That's a recipe for disaster, man. I mean, let's face it. And in a free market, another fact, in a free market, the best technology will always win. That is the entire strength of a free market. That is how free markets build wealth. You know, you have the best product ever. You know, at least up until now, the best product seen by the world. You bring it to market, it's gonna make you rich, right? But when a government forces the market to adopt something, when it's not the best yet, you're heading towards disaster. You're heading towards failure, quite frankly. I don't see how we're going to adopt this technology that isn't quite ready yet by 2030. Okay? That's 8 years away. Actually, we're coming up on 2023. That's 7 years away. It's not ready, guys. It's not. So let's pump the brakes. Let's chill a little bit. Now, thankfully, not all car companies are going full tilt into this. Thankfully, you have companies like Toyota that will continue to offer hybrids. Thankfully, big gas, big oil is a big lobbying machine. So well past 2030, there will still be gas pumps. You will still be able to fuel up your ICE engine. How expensive that's going to be? Man, we'll see. I don't feel very good about it right now, I'll tell you that. But what choice are we going to have? You know? Again, the technology isn't there. It will be eventually. But I think we need more than 7 years to get there, honestly. I would say we probably need at least 12 to 15. But again, that's just the ramblings of one crazy YouTuber. Who knows? Guess we'll find out, right? So yeah, that's going to cover it for this one. But I want to thank you for watching. And if you like this episode, leave that like and subscribe, you know? Let's grow the Pit Crew Nation. And leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. You know, how do you feel about EVs? Are you ready for them? Do you have one now? If so, how do you like it? You know, from my point of view, it's an oven on wheels. Let's face it. It's got no character, it's got no life, it's got no feeling. I mean, come on. But hey, you might feel differently. So fill me in. Fill in my knowledge gaps. Tell me what you love about it. Tell me what you don't love about it. And tell me what your experience has been taking one on an extended road trip. You know, have you tried to go cross country? Have you tried to go cross state? You know, let's get this conversation rolling. And until next time, keep it legal, keep it on the track.